why agency build? Because selling final expense, much less life insurance, there is a ceiling on your earning income capability. It's very rare to find agents that in earnest are making $250,000 a year just selling final expense. There's a lot that make, well, not a lot, there's a percentage, the top 10% are making six figures, but we're talking 100,000, 150,000. Okay. If your goal income wise is $250,000 or more, the better way to get to that is by agency building or possibly, I'm less convinced of this now, selling Medicare, cross-selling Medicare to final expense. It's a lot harder because Medicare is not a passive income, and clients flip a lot. They go to different plans, different agents, and it's not as secure of a product as it used to be. So agency building is where it's at if you want to have a substantially large income, $250,000 plus a year. That's the reason to do it. The advantage of it is that you don't have to sell anymore, or to the same extent. Obviously, after you've actually built a team that's sustainable and a system to constantly fuel in new agents. All right. So, and the other pro of that is the money is even way, $250,000 is great, but it can be much, 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 much better depending on the scale and the growth, et cetera. And it's pretty simple in the sense of if you take recruiting down to its bare bones, it's about finding good people, putting them into a system that's duplicatable and scalable from a sales system to teach, as well as a marketing system for them to employ, whether that's free leads like with us or buying their own leads. There's different approaches. And then rinsing and repeating that process at scale. Okay. So it's about finding good people, having a system to teach them, and then having a lead system to give them, and making it profitable as well. I started off in that process by recruiting people to buy leads. That's how I've done up till about 24. So about 11 years of recruiting. That's how we did it. And then it dawned on me that buying leads is not the best way for 95% of the agents because they don't know how to spend their money right. They get too emotional about spending it, and they usually make bad decisions about leads because there's just a lot of crap out there. And so that's when we went into the free lead space, which takes a lot more money. It's a lot more riskier, but it potentially is more profitable. And it's more recruitable at the same time. So, so most of my business has been with not free leads. It's been free leads is a rather recent 18, 19 months now strategy that we implemented. The other side, the pro to building a team, is that there's a potential equity event. There's a lot of private equity that's in the space that are buying up good agencies that are predictable in income at very high multiples. There's a ton of that over the past 4 years. A lot of people I know have exited, made a lot of money, and built a great business. The downsides to recruiting are as follows. It distracts you from sales, which it has to. You're responsible for somebody other than yourself now. But in the beginning, you're going to have to continue to sell to make your income while also having to deal with agents, training them, supporting them, et cetera. And invariably, that's going to pull you out of the field, or at least your effectiveness. The way that I dealt with it is I worked 6-day weeks for years until probably about 2016. I went down to 4-day weeks and had people butts in chairs and just did everything all the time. So it's a sacrifice, and you're going to have to work a lot more, especially in the first couple of years as you start to build the foundations of your agency. The second risk, so your income may suffer if you don't bump up your work ethic or your work amount is what I'm saying. The second thing is that the reality is that not everybody's going to make it. And it's frustrating because typically if you're a business owner, you're half glass full personality. Even with all the best training in the world, some people just don't make it. You know, and this business is not for everybody. And you'll have people that you spend so much time with that never actually pan out and make money for you. And it's just really cost you. And it's very frustrating. So a lot of agency owners eventually start to resent agents, because they just frankly don't understand the business model. There's some that make it, some that don't. And you got to identify your winners quickly and recognize that some people just aren't going to make it. Additionally, let's see what else. Oh, the big risk, the big risk that nobody ever says at the MLMs is that when you recruit agents, you co-sign on their debt. Okay. So what's debt? Well, I'm talking about chargeback. So if an agent writes business with me and it charges back, I am now responsible, and they don't pay it. I'm now responsible for it. All right. Chargebacks happen. It's a cost of doing business. Some people are not responsible with their money, and that's just how it is. Where it really gets hairy is when there's abject fraud that occurs, where there are literally agents that will fake applications to get advanced money to the tunes of tens of thousands and then leave you holding the bag. And it's happened a number of times. It really started right around COVID. And this is, if you look at the fraud stuff, like COVID, all this fraud started happening all over the place with COVID and during COVID. And I think the worst year I had was like 100 to 150,000 in losses, literal fraud. And I'm not even adding in the stuff that was legit chargebacks that the agent didn't pay, that's lapsed, but people who just stole money. And the problem is, in this business, the carriers don't do anything. They don't hire a lawyer. They don't go after these people. They put all of that impetus on you. And to take somebody to court to recover the damages and the theft that they did from their fraud, it's very expensive to hire attorneys. You're looking at probably tens of thousands of dollars to build a case, show evidence of the fraud. And you're in this position where it's like, I can spend 25 grand, but I'm never going to recover from this person, probably. Or I can just take the loss. It's part of the reason why we moved to free leads, because what I found, and I found this with my friends in business, is that brokers tend to be the most expensive form of business. And so, not all of them, and it's saying it's a very small minority. I probably had less than 10 fraud cases out of thousands of agents, right? It's not a lot. But the problem is that these people who defraud go after the highest contracts, and then they just place a bunch of business with them and then disappear. And it's just not worth it. So that's a huge issue, especially more so with the broker side of the business. I've not seen nearly, really at all, the fraud levels associated with the free lead, because the guys who are looking to score the most money, they don't want a 30%, 40% contract. They want to have a 120% contract. So invariably, the free lead program, I think, is a little more fraud resistant, which is a huge source of costs or losses. I just spoke to a guy that I know very well in an email. He was saying, I can read the email here. Hold on. Let me see what he says here. He said, I just paid off my Aetna debt roll-up in full from a single agent, 3 layers deep. So this wasn't his direct agent. This was like, there was 2 layers between. That started at $320,000. And I just stroked a check for $226,000 to make it go away. One agent I never knew who probably spent 15 minutes with a recruiter, and he only had 1 contract with us. I mean, I laugh because it's just so stupid. So, like, he could go after this guy. I mean, this guy should be in a federal pen the rest of his life. And maybe that would be worth it. But these are the things you get to look forward to if you recruit. It's the way it is. So, I don't know where I was going with this agency building. I actually had a lot of positive things to say, and then it turns into like the reality, On par, it's been great. And you can mitigate a lot of this stuff. You have to really watch who you recruit. You have to watch the business they write. You have to know what to look for. You have to be very careful. But the thing I want to stress here is that this is why in the MLM world, where they recruit people to recruit, they never mention this stuff. And the guys at the top of the food chain, and this is why they recruit 5, 10 plus layers deep in this pyramid, is because there's all these layers of financial protection where those chargeback roll-ups, they don't ever really get to the top. They hit in the mid and the upper level where they're making money, but they absorb these huge chargebacks, right? and they're less inclined and they're more protected because of it, because of the way the structure works. So, yeah. Other than that, recruiting's great. I love it. Um, it's a great business model if you can figure it out, and it takes years to do. That's for sure. So, questions. I'm happy to talk about it. Are you providing funding or only free leads? I only do free leads now. Unless you've been with us for a while in our free lead program, I'll entertain the idea to make you a broker where you can buy leads. But it's just not an economically good business model anymore for us. It's just when you have the risk of people who will just abjectly steal from you and not give a damn, it's just, and I'm talking about straight up fraud. It's just not worth it. Um, yeah. So it's the money's just not there. And plus, most agents, they just don't do it right. That's the way it is. They buy the wrong leads. They don't do the program. It's part of the reason why we cut off the lead program. It's frustrating. It's like we got like you're working with our lead like us internal lead system, and you guys won't stick with it. Like, what's wrong with you people? So we just cut it off. Is there any kind of bonding insurance to cover? Probably, but yeah, there probably is. I've never heard of it. And I think, but if there was, I probably would have heard of it by now. So there probably is. It's just, yeah. The worst I heard of was this one guy who had been around for years, ran a con for about a year and a half to 2 years, writing fake business, a lot of it on people who are already dead. These companies were running. This is the thing. They want to make the companies, the carriers, say you're responsible for this debt, but then they don't have the responsibility to do the job right. And so this guy was processing this fraud, was sending in applications on dead people, getting approvals, and racked up $1 million in chargebacks with one company and 500,000 with another through one guy. And this upline was supposedly going to be at, you got to write that off. Are you kidding me? You guys aren't doing your job, right? Now, I'd go to court over that, But I think what had happened is this guy had bought houses and boats, and so he had assets that were recoverable. The feds came in because this is like serious. Like this got ripped off so many people. The feds came in, froze assets, bank accounts. So there's some sort of recoverability there. But that's the worst I've ever seen. And that's what I've learned too, is the carriers aren't incentivized to watch your money at all because you're liable. We'll figure out somebody to roll it to. That's pretty much their behavior. So, and a lot of that again happens with brokers, not free leads. What kind of capital would you recommend to have in reserve before considering agency building? I mean, I've always been profitable on agency building. It's doesn't, that's part of the appeal to it. It doesn't take a lot of money to start agency building. What you need to have is a system to bring in good agents. That's what most people lack. Most people are going to tell you to work your, and it's fine to do this, to work your warm market. You really can't advertise on Indeed or ZipRecruiter anymore. Yeah, I think you can do ZipRecruiter, but it's like, it's the worst candidates. They're just, it's just well, a bunch of money wasted. You can get lists and dial them, but you really need to do what I do, which is have a social media presence that builds a brand and not spend anything for recruiting. I mean, that's the biggest advantage. And people, by the time they apply, they already like and trust you, and it takes time to build that reputation, but it's way better than what you would normally think. Well, let's go on the ZipRecruiter or Indeed and post a job. Now it's just candidates that suck. They're just really the worst of the worst. So, I mean, besides that, it's an otherwise low intensive, low capital job or business model, except when you get stuck with chargeback debt. So how much should you do? I don't know. I don't think you should quit your job. I think you should probably work more. And I think you should save up as much as possible. And if I could go back and do it all over again, what I would do differently is have a system to monitor sales. It's hard to do that in final expense if you have like 15 carriers, because then you're like logging in the 15 companies. But I would hire a VA, create a spreadsheet where I can monitor production from sales of agents. I can look to see if like Joe Blow wrote 10A policies today. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what's wrong with this? Like I would monitor that stuff daily and aggressively pull advances on people who I think are trying to con me. I didn't do that until I'd been conned a lot. And that is the way to stop a lot of that. But even when you do that, it's hard. It's like I have another guy that came from senior life and rolled a bunch of business. He took his book of business, I believe, and just rewrote them with the carrier we had and wrote all these sales. Some of it stuck, but a lot of it lapsed. I think I was on the hook for like 40 grand, something like that. And it's just preposterous, you know? So this is the stuff. And again, this is what brokers do. You got to be very careful. I'm very wary as a guy recruiting brokers. I'm very wary of the guy coming in, and you have to have some level of paranoia to survive, that already has an established book or who's jumped around. If they have a current vector or owe money, don't even recruit them. A zebra doesn't change its stripes. If they're going to leave somebody with money, a vector is like they have debt they have not paid. They're going to do it to you. Do your FE carriers provide the same commission levels for FE and mortgage protection? And are they providing approval during the telesales call? Yes, to all of the above. Mortgage protection, it depends. Some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know, man. I'm probably the worst salesperson. I'm either the best or the worst salesperson. I always like scaring people straight when it comes to joining the agency, like telling them everything they need to know and the stuff they wish they didn't know. Because I'd rather you come into this knowing kind of what you're getting into. What I don't like, at least people in the reference of joining my agency, is like, I never knew this was going to be like this. Like, you can't prepare everything you never be 100% prepared, but I want to be as close as possible to it. I don't want anything to be a shock or surprise when you join my agency. I kind of think that way about agency building. Like, it's great. It really is. And I'm glad I cannot express to you, after all of the negative things I said, like the agency building has freed my time. I have more free time to do things that I want. I don't have to go out there and sell. I mean, I have an income I couldn't get as a final expense agent. And it's great. I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. But it's not all rainbows and sunshine. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff that you got to be concerned with, just like any business.